In this video, we will show you how to replace your rear brake caliper on this Ford F-150. This is part of your braking system located behind your rear wheel. Let's get into it. Let's prepare to remove our driver's side rear wheel. To do this, safely raise and support the rear of the vehicle so the wheel's off the ground. If you have a center cover, go ahead and remove that. I'm using a small pry bar for this. I'm just finding the slot in the center cover. We'll pry this out in place. Once you have that removed, it exposes our 6 21mm lug nuts. Let's remove all of these and the wheel. Now that we have the wheel off, we have a clear view of our rear caliper. We're going to start along the backside at our bleeder screw. Now, prior to opening up the bleeder screw, you want to make sure you have some sort of collection receptacle. I have one that has a hose that can go directly onto my bleeder screw. Otherwise, just make sure you have a collection bucket underneath this area. Commonly on your bleeder screw, you're going to find that you have a protective rubber boot. Let's go ahead and remove that. You may need a pocket screwdriver. Just give that a quick inspection, set it aside. The bleeder screw on this vehicle, you're going to be using a 10mm. I've got my collection receptacle here. Let's get this in place. Once you're sure that the bleeder screw does open and you can see some fluid making its way out of the bleeder screw, we're going to make our way into the passenger compartment. Press the brake pedal all the way down to the floor and hold it there with something such as a pry bar. Now, after holding that all the way down, we're back at the wheel. We're going to close off our bleeder screw. Now, this is going to prevent fluid from making its way out of this area while we continue on. Let's get this out of here. Now that we've closed our bleeder screw, the next thing that we're going to have to do is start removing our flex hose from the rear of the caliper. Now, along the backside here, you're going to find a 14mm banjo bolt holding the flex hose in place. Keep in mind, brake fluid may come out of this area, so we have our collection receptacle under here. As I was removing that, I saw one of my gaskets come out of place. The other one's still on the banjo bolt. I'm just going to remove that. We'll give the banjo bolt a quick inspection, confirming it's still reusable. We also want to double check the flex hose, confirming there's no pre-existing gaskets on that as well. If this needs to be cleaned up, go ahead and do a light sanding, but don't use any type of detergent that might get inside of the braking system. We'll set this aside temporarily. To continue removing the caliper, you're going to find that you have two 10mm slider bolts. Let's remove the pair. Now, if you were to look along the outside of the caliper area here, you're going to find that it has a small tab. You just want to carefully depress that, and we'll slide this out of place. Keep in mind there could be brake fluid inside of the caliper. Now, at this point, if you're replacing the brake pads, you don't necessarily have to remove them. Since we are reusing these, they must be removed. You're going to start with the outer brake pad. For that, you want to take hold of the brake pad and the caliper itself, and we're going to try to stretch that brake pad, pull it up and away from the two locking ears here, and then slide it out and away. It has two locking tabs inside of these circular ports. There we are. I should be able to rock this right out of position now. Thorough inspection of the brake pads, of course, confirming they are reusable as we continue on. We're attempting to make sure we do not get any brake fluid on our friction material. There it is, friend. Okay, it's time to prepare our brand new caliper for installation. The first thing we want to do is lubricate each one of our two slider pins. For this, you should be able to take hold of the slider pin and push it in one direction or the other. We're essentially trying to get the boot off of the slider pin in one area. Slide that straight up and through. Now once you have it out far enough, we'll continue on with some high temperature caliper lubricant. We're going to lubricate the entire shafted area of that slider pin. And I'm going to make my way inside the opposite side of the boot here. We're trying to bring the lubricant in and all the way up to this point right here. Now we'll just go ahead and slide that back into place. Make sure the boot's seated on both sides and work the lubricant into place. Perfect. Go ahead and repeat the process for the other one. Continuing with our high temperature lubricant, we're going to lubricate along the caliper piston right here and along the back side of each of the two ears on the outboard side. This will help with vibration dampening and noise reduction overall. While we're in this area, let's also reinstall our brake pads. We're starting with the inboard pad. The inboard pad is the one that has the 3 locking ears in the center. We're going to take those locking ears and try to slide them inside the caliper piston. You may have to rock this in. Once you feel as though you do have it pressed in, just go ahead and try to give it a wiggle. We're attempting to pull it out. It should not fall out of place. It's time for the outer brake pad. Now for this, we want to make sure that we have the 2 locating tabs on the brake pad itself aligned with their circular ports. We'll take this. We have our locking ears on the outboard side. Slide it in, listen for a click. Double check to make sure it's completely seated and placed properly. Let's get this on the vehicle. Prior to installing the caliper onto the vehicle, we want to pay attention to the areas where your brake pads are going to sit. You're going to find you have metal tins that need to be removed. We'll clean up the area under them and then install some lubricant in our brand new tins that came with the caliper. Just going to try to get this off of here. Once you remove those, a quick inspection, set them aside for recycling. Now we'll just add some high temperature lubricant to each of these areas so we can reinstall our tins. We're making sure we do not get any of this on our friction material. We have our tins. For these, typically you're going to have to tap them in place using a small hammer. Now let's get this caliper in place. We're going to start down along the bottom first. We'll slide the pads over our brake rotor and roll this into the proper position. Listen for a click and double check to make sure it's seated properly. Now along the inboard side, we have our 2 mounting bolts. For those, you want to start them both in. After they're both started in, snug them up. The torque for these is 22 foot-pounds. Now looking along the back side of the caliper, where the banjo bolt should be, you're going to find a small rubber plug. Go ahead and set that aside. Now the next thing we need to do is pay attention to our banjo bolt. We're going to take a brand new gasket and put it on our cleaned banjo bolt. Slide it all the way on there. Continuing on, we're going to take that bolt and we'll slide it straight on through the flex hose. We want to make sure we have it going through the proper side. One side you're going to find a small lip, the other side you won't. We're going through the side with the lip. On the opposite side of the flex hose, the smooth side, let's continue on with another brand new gasket. Now there's a new gasket on each side of the flex hose. We'll get this in position, start it in and snug it up. Once you have that banjo bolt started in, we're going to bottom it out and torque it to 26 foot-pounds. The next thing we need to do is remove pressure from on our brake pedal and we'll make our way back out here to our bleeder screw. We're going to gravity bleed the system. For this, we want to make sure that our brake fluid is topped off up to par. We're going to use our 10mm to open up our bleeder screw And then we're going to wait until we see a steady trickle of fluid making its way out. Now that we're sure we do not see any more air bubbles making their way out, let's go ahead and close that bleeder screw. Now that we've completed our gravity bleed on this, the next thing that you need to do is make your way into the passenger compartment. You're going to pump up the brake pedal until it feels firm. If you find that the brake pedal gets firm, but then feels a little squishy and goes down towards the floor, you may still have air trapped in the system. If that's the case, you can continue on with another gravity bleed or do a manual brake bleed. That's the most likely way to remove all air from inside the system. Otherwise, just go ahead and clean up your mess and reinstall your bleeder screw cover. One more quick inspection in this area, we'll reinstall our wheel. Once you have your wheel in place, start on all 6 of your 21mm lug nuts and we'll bottom them out. Now with the wheel safely on the ground, let's torque each one of our 21mm lug nuts to 150 foot-pounds in a crisscross manner. Torqued. If you have a center cover, install that now. Now when installing the center cover, the one thing that we want to pay attention to is the slot where we had pried from. If you were looking at the wheel, you're going to find that it has a notch. That notch would be located closest to your valve stem. Let's align all 3 of these areas and we'll tap this into place. At the master cylinder, we're going to go ahead and remove all the fluid from in this area so we can replace it with brand new brake fluid. We don't want to use any of the pre-existing brake fluid. Let's start by removing the master cylinder cap along the top. Now inside of this area, you're going to remove the brake fluid. This can be done several different ways. If you have a fluid extractor, you can go ahead and carefully bring it down to this area and remove as much fluid as possible. And we'll just go ahead and top off our fluid. We're using brand new .3 or .4 brake fluid. It's really up to you. Now we can start bleeding the brakes. We're starting at the passenger side rear. For this, it's going to be easiest if you have a second person. The second person will be inside of the vehicle and they're going to be pumping the brake for us. What we need them to do is pump up the brake approximately 3 to 5 times until it feels firm. Once it does, we're going to open up our bleeder screw and we're going to watch the fluid making its way out. We want to have only clean, brand new fluid, never any dirty fluid or even any air bubbles. I'm going to go ahead and remove this bleeder screw cover first. I have my collection receptacle, of course. We're going to recycle any fluid that comes out of this properly. Now on this caliper, I'm using a 10mm for my bleeder screw. Now as you can see, I had a lot of dirty fluid making its way out of there. Let's continue on with our bleed process. Go ahead and pump, please. Go ahead and pump. There we go. Now we got some air coming from there. Let's go ahead and bleed this again. Now, once you feel as though you've removed all the dirty fluid and air from in the system, go ahead and remove your apparatus and we'll continue on cleaning our mess and reinstalling the bleeder screw cover for this caliper. Now, I showed you how to bleed the caliper on one side of the vehicle. You're going to go over to the driver's side and repeat this exact same process. Once you've completed that, make your way up to the engine compartment and top off your master cylinder. After that, we're making our way to the passenger side front wheel. After topping off that master cylinder, we're at the passenger side front, as I mentioned. Go ahead and remove your bleeder screw cover. We're using our 10mm for the bleeder screw here as well. Go ahead and pump up the brake pedal, please. Go ahead and pump. Go ahead and pump. Okay, that one looks perfect. Let's get one more here just to confirm everything's proper. Let's get that off of there. We can clean up our mess. Reinstall our bleeder screw cover. Now at this point, you need to go over to the driver's side front. You're going to repeat this exact same process, and we're ending back up under the hood. We're going to bring this all the way up to the maximum line. Just a little bit more. Reinstall your cap. Okay, friend, we finished bleeding our system. The next thing that you want to do is make sure that you hop in the passenger compartment, pump up the brake pedal, and confirm that it stays firm. After that, reinstall every one of your wheels and torque those lug nuts to 150 foot-pounds and take your vehicle for a road test. Thanks for watching.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.